So yeah, thanks for the invitation to speak to IMSIG. I'm going to try and give you a brief introduction to the Heritage Science Data Service. We're relatively new, only founded or started in October a year ago, in 2024, that is now. So we're still in our setup phase, but I'll try and give you an overview of what we've been doing. And in fact, I'm going to step a little bit back from the HSDS to give you a bit of background. First of all, question we're often getting asked, what is heritage science? I'll try and answer that as best I can. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the programme that we're funded out of by AHRC, a bit of the background to that, to the facilities and collections projects that have been funded, and to the Access Fund, because I want very much in this talk to show how CIfA members and professional archaeologists, not just university-based archaeologists, can benefit from the Richards programme and indeed from HSDS. I also need to give you a little bit of background to the European context for the HSDS and the Richards programme by talking about ERIS, and then that will bring me specifically to the HSDS, where I'll give you a quick introduction to our services catalogue, our data catalogue, both of which were launched in October 2025, and then say a little bit about what's coming up, virtual research environments, our small grants programme, and I'm going to end with another frequently asked question. Well, what's the difference between HSDS and the ADS? So I'll try and answer that. So starting then with definitions of heritage science, well, I'm going to simply quote actually from the AHRC's own definition of heritage science, which is the application of scientific techniques and technologies to improve our understanding, conservation, management, and engagement with cultural heritage. It ensures that heritage assets remain safe to view, display, handle, and study, and is therefore vital to the continued economic viability of the heritage sector. Put more simply, heritage science is the use of scientific techniques to answer questions about our cultural heritage. So you might be thinking, well, that sounds what we do as archaeologists anyway. And I think you'd probably be right. There's a huge amount of overlap between what we define as heritage science and what we're familiar with as archaeology, both above and below ground. I think that obviously the emphasis is on much more on scientific techniques, and also on maybe on answering some of the grand challenges, questions, the big questions that are out there about the past. So that brings me to the Richards programme, which is a big investment that the UKRI and the HRC particularly have made in conservation and heritage science. So overall, it's an £80 million commitment. They've funded 31 projects, and across those, there are some 144 project partners. I'm going to go back a bit in time, though, because the Richards programme has taken a long time to get established. And it goes back really to 2006, when a House of Lords Select Committee report on science and heritage noted that our standing in science-based conservation is now under threat, the sector fragmented and undervalued. I think this has been a sort of long-standing problem in this area, and that then led to a number of actions. First of all, the HRC partnered with the EPSRC to run a higher science and heritage grants programme, and that ran from 2007 to 2012 and led to a number of projects funded under that scheme. In addition, it led to the establishment of the National Heritage Science Forum, the NHSF, which is a sort of cross-body umbrella organisation, and that published in 2010 a vision and strategy for heritage science and how we could promote it. Took a while, but eventually funding became available via the AHRC, initially through a program called CAPCO that was launched in 2020, which kitted out a number of laboratories, both in museums and galleries, also in universities. And there was about 30 million, I think, spent on that program, and along with a related program called Cresca. And then finally, the HRC managed to get investment in science and heritage science in their strategic delivery plan, which they published for 2022 to 25 in 2022. And that said that one of the things they would work towards was the delivery of a heritage science programme. So that led to the funding calls that were made in 2023, 3 calls to host collections, to host facilities, and to develop a digital research services, the heritage science research. And out of that first call, what they call tranche 1, they funded 13 collections, so largely reference collections across universities, museums, galleries. They also funded 17 facilities, largely lab-based facilities, and they funded 1 heritage science-based service. And we were fortunate that that was the proposal put forward by ADS with a number of partners was successful. I'm not going to go through all those 31 projects. You can find out what they all are on the Rich's website. But just a flavour then under the facilities. For example, there's a maritime heritage facility hosted at the University of Southampton, led by Fraser Sturt. In our own university in York, the BioArc facility is now part of the Rich's programme. And then on the collection side, just a couple of examples, one with the National Trust, providing access to their collections, and one at the National Museums of Scotland on focusing on human remains. But that's just a quick flavour of those 30 projects, and really recommend you to look at the website and see what else has been funded. Because the relevance of this to you is that you can apply for funding to make use of either the reference collection facilities or the laboratory facilities. There is what's known as the Rich's Access Fund, which will fund either staff time, travel expenses, and laboratory costs to allow you to analyse, for example, post-excavation materials from excavations that wouldn't otherwise be able to be analysed. The first call for that access fund closed just before Christmas with expressions of interest, but the full application stage runs from the 28th of January to April 2026. And I understand that it is possible to bid under that full application stage without having put in an EOI. But there will be further calls as well. I think the plan is for 2 calls per year. And just to note on who can apply, long list of types of organisations, individual researchers, academic organisations, registered charities, but I've highlighted commercial companies or freelance specialists working in collaboration with eligible partner organisations. So archaeological contracting units, for example, are eligible to apply. They ran a pilot stage just before Christmas, and have funded what they're calling 5 catalyst projects already. And I've listed these just to give you a flavour of the types of analyses that can be covered under the Access Fund. So, for example, at the DMAC facility at Manchester Met University, run by Ben Edwards. They've got a partnership with the Portland Basin Museum, where they're going to be making 3D models of artifacts and embedded with, I understand, with Braille as well, so to help the visually impaired interpret those. English Heritage, their conservation department are doing a assessment of a very rich film archive at the British Motor Museum for the British motor industry, and they're going to be writing a report on what's needed to make sure that rich legacy is preserved. Some of you may remember the big Sulgrave archaeological project at Exeter. They're going to be working to try and make that available. The Durrington Walls excavation, led by Mike Parker Pearson, he's got access to the archaeobotany reference collection at Sheffield BioArt project, and to the specialists there to now write up the charred plant remains and wood charcoal from that site. And lastly, there's a project at Trimontium between the Trimontium Trust and Bradford Archaeology and AOC Archaeology to do more geophysics work on that important Roman site. So that is what's available through the Access Fund. I'm going to turn now to the European landscape and to ERIS. So ERIS, European Research Infrastructure for Heritage Science, and RISHES sits within this. ERIS is what's known as an ERIC, sorry for all these acronyms, but an ERIC is a legal entity that's European states have signed up to and now pay a subscription to be part of this much broader research infrastructure. Unusually, the UK has signed up to this. Brexit makes no difference to being members of ERICs. And in the past, we've not tended to join many outside the hard physics area. So things like the Hadron Collider and things like that are run via ERICs, but there haven't been many in the arts and humanities. So the British programme is really a sort of microcosm of what is going on at European level, where the labs are again being opened up for sharing across, and you can see on the map there, the 11 European countries that have already signed up to be part of ERIS. And so those are also available for access if facilities in some of those labs are more appropriate for European needs. And the AHRC is starting to fund access to those as well. But they're much more than just access to labs. They run training courses, they're doing R&D, doing work on standards, looking at the impact of the work, but they're a really important vehicle for international cooperation, and particularly ERIS will be very important for cooperation in the heritage sector. This is sort of diagram just represents the structure really of how an ERIC works. Most of them have a central hub. In the case of ERIS, this is based in Florence in Italy, and the RICHES programme in the UK is a national node. So that's run by RICHES headquarters, who are actually based up at STFC, Daresbury near Warrington. And then under the national node are these different facilities. So and collections. So like, for example, the ones I was talking about before at Southampton or Bradford and so forth. So that's how we sort of fit into this much broader landscape. We've also mirrored, really in the UK, the structure that has been established at European level, where they split ERIS into 4 categories, which they classifies different sorts of labs, really. So ArchLab is physical and local digital archives for heritage science. So these are reference collections, whether analog or digital. Fixed Lab are the large scale and advanced laboratory facilities that are based in a in a fixed location. MoLab, as you might expect then, are the mobile instruments. So, for example, Fraser Sturt taking diving equipment out to a site, that would be categorized as MoLab. And then lastly, which hasn't been so well developed at European level yet, we're in the UK, we're actually in advanced. This is where the HSDS fits in, where we are in effect the DigiLab for the UK, providing data, and we will be providing digital tools as well for creating new heritage science knowledge. This diagram attempts to show how that all fits together and how physical and digital access are integrated with the 4 types of laboratories, each producing enriched data, running digital services, and at the core of that are research activities with it, heritage assets, scientific questions and instruments. And particularly for DigiLab, digital twins are a key element of this, providing representations of physical heritage assets. But all this information is stored in the heritage science knowledge base, which for the UK now is will be the HSDS data catalogue. So that does bring me finally to the HSDS. And this is our mission statement: to unlock potential for innovation in heritage science and conservation research and its capacity to advance understanding, preservation and management of UK heritage. And we do really provide the backbone of the Riches programme, because we're providing 2 catalogues, a catalogue of research facilities, but also a catalogue of data, what we describe there as an aggregating function. That's underpinned, as in the case of ADS, and in fact it is the ADS repository, a fair repository for research data to encourage access and reuse. And then we're also working in partnership with STFC to develop a suite of virtual research environments and software tools. And these will allow researchers to visualize and analyze data. And the first one of these, a virtual desktop, will be available for free and widespread use from June this year. So there are a lot of people that I'm speaking on behalf of here that are doing all the work here. Some of these people you will probably know already. Some of them have moved sideways from ADS. This is specifically the HSDS team. There are now 40 of us across ADS and HSDS as a whole. But mix of management layer. You have Nikki Garland, training and comms, who previously spoke to IMSIG about Oasis, applications developers, standards. Valeria is our new collections development manager, just started in post this year. And then Ewan Chipping is providing training courses. Watch out for those being advertised, those are freely available. Jamie Geddes behind the scenes, making sure that the machines are all running properly. And then also Evelyn is a data standards officer, Grace supporting Nikki on comms, but a range of digital archives specialists as well, Olivia Berjou and Solange. And then most importantly, making sure all the finances are correct is Lydia. But we're not doing this alone either. The HSDS consortium pulls together a wide range of partners right across the UK. And these are responsible for providing the metadata and the data for the catalogues, providing specialist advice on semantics and data standards for their fields, and inputting to the user needs requirements. So as well as ADS as a core partner, we have National Museum of Wales, the BGS, Historic England, Historic Environment Scotland, Natural History Museum, National Archives, National Gallery, and the British Museum. So some of the key national players there. We have other core partners who are providing support on user needs, data collection for the services catalogue, and providing technical support. So I already mentioned HRC is working on the VREs with us, Flax and Teal, who are one of the Archer's approved developers, providing support on Archers for Science, Cartography are providing support for Research Space, another collections management system, and then MMU are doing data collection for the services catalogue, and the National Heritage Science Forum are looking at surveys for user needs. And please do engage with them. They've already been doing quite a lot of consultation, but we'll be doing some more in 2026 because we're really looking for the community to drive how we develop the service. This is where we are. We started, as I said, in September 24. We've gone through the first stage of implementation and releasing the catalogues supporting the richest projects. So we're now here building up our training for users, developing specific heritage science guides to good practice, working more on identifying the users and promoting, agreeing the control vocabularies that as we move into this different fields from what we're maybe familiar with, and particularly building and populating the data and services catalogues and building the VREs. And then over the next phase from 27 to 29, we reach what we're describing as steady state with everything fully in operation. So the user journey for Richard's projects is that any end user, as I mentioned, can apply to Richards for funding to access one of these collections or facilities, but they are then required to, after they've made use of it, to deposit the data with the HSDS, and for that there is no cost. They have a 3-month deadline for deposit normally, although we do allow publication embargo periods. And we have just published a list of other approved repositories. So, for example, for Scotland, HES, the Trove system, may be the appropriate repository for Scottish sites, similarly with the Aberystwyth, the Welsh Royal Commission for Welsh sites. And there are sometimes more specialist repositories, such as for ancient DNA. So we're not necessarily taking everything, but recognise that there may be more appropriate repositories in some cases. But our mandate is to make sure that everything that's generated through the Richards programme is preserved into the long term and is fair data. So there are, as well as the Richards applicants, there are other routes to data deposition. We're working on a number of legacy data projects, and we've also just run the first round of our own small grants program, which I'll say a little bit more in a minute. So indeed, I'm afraid the first call for that has now closed, so you missed it if this interests you, but there will be another funding call released sometime probably this summer, so look out for that. There are 2 strands to the programme. Funding stream 1 is to enable or enhance access to heritage science or conservation resources. So this is really focused on preparing existing data sets for deposit. It's not to sort of fund large digitisation projects from scratch, but if there are already digital data which needs cleaning, needs sorting, so that it can be deposited and can be made much more usable, this is what this funding is for. It can also be used to bring together collections which relate to a single site, but there's going to be a value added for putting them together. And then funding stream 2, these are opportunities to work with the software engineering team at HRC, at SDFC, to develop tailored virtual research environment applications and workflows for example, creating a collaborative 3D working environment where you can explore massive 3D data sets that you wouldn't be able to do on your own laptop, or conducting complex statistical analyses that would take days to run on a laptop. So we'll be announcing the winners of the first round towards the end of February, and that will give you, I think, a flavour of the sorts of things that are eligible to apply. But any legal entity can apply, so any archaeological organisation can apply for that. So the overall architecture, the simplified version then, is you can deposit data using, well, in fact, soon it will be using the new ingest tool, which has already been tested by many archaeological users. At the moment, it's our existing ADS-EASY system, but for HSDS and ADS, we'll be using ingest to bring the data in. And then that goes into the data store, and we have access via HRC to facilities to store very large data sets. Some heritage science procedures generate gigabytes, or if not terabytes of files, but at HRC we have access to petabytes of storage. So large data isn't a problem. But the majority of data sets will probably be managed through the existing ADS data store. From the store, they're then available both via the HSDS catalogue as appropriate, or the ADS data catalogue, and indeed also at a European level, because the same metadata is served up to the European Ariadne portal. So multiple shop windows where you can promote your own projects and data sets. So I was going to say a little bit more about the repository side. Imagine most people on this call may be familiar with the ADS, but as has been mentioned, we were set up in 1996. We're already a national UK-wide digital research infrastructure and a mandated archive for heritage for the UK research councils and a number of other bodies. As I mentioned, we're now 40 staff across both organisations, and we are a trusted digital repository in the formal sense that we hold Quarter Seal accreditation and National Archives archive accreditation, the first digital-only archive to be so accredited. And we now, via the catalogue, provide access to over 2.4 million records for UK heritage, drawn from our own archives and the databases, data sets of various partners. And at the latest count, ADS now provides access to over 100,000 fieldwork reports and over 5,000 full project digital archives. So that repository is also underpinning the new data sets coming in via the HSDS. So there are two catalogues available. I'll show you. I'm not going to do a live demo, not that brave, but I'll just show you a couple of screenshots of each. Catalogue of services and the catalogue of data. This is the data catalogue, a faceted search with various filters down the side, allowing you to search by where, when, and what, and then access to individual collections. And you can see that we've already seeded that with some existing ADS collections which fall within the category of heritage science. So quite a lot from High Speed 2, where there's been large landscape projects and a lot of 3D data. So there's an example when you drill down. This for ADS users, this sort of interface will be familiar with the DOI to the individual archive. But there's one of our first heritage science, as it were, data sets in that, or not our first heritage science, but our first from a completely different domain. So we have a small data set from the National Museum of Wales on the conservation work done on a Canaletto painting of St. Mark's. And we're anticipating quite a lot of paint sample data provided by various galleries will be added to this catalogue as well. And indeed, that complements existing reports, so including this grey literature report of, I think this is a Historic England study of paint samples from Osborne House on the Isle of Wight, which was already available in the ADS Grey Literature Library, but it is now also available via HSDS. Then for the catalogue of services, as I mentioned, this is how you can find the facilities and collections that you might want to use. As I mentioned, the data collection for that is being done by Manchester Met University. So I think they've already been in contact with some of the people who are on this call to collect data for that catalogue. Again, there's the QR code and the link if you want to explore it. This is a much smaller data set at the moment. I think this is slightly out of date. I think there are about 30 results in there now. But again, with a similar list of filters that you can query if you're interested or limited to look at resource facilities available from a particular country or region, or you already know the organisation that you want to use, or if you don't know that but you want access to a particular method, or indeed you don't even know that, but by asset types you say, okay, I've got ceramics, what sorts of heritage science approaches and facilities can I use? And that will allow you to filter the list of these services. So for example, this screenshot, I've just said, okay, I want to know where I can get Rich's funded access to remote sensing equipment. I can specify the particular technique that I want to use if I want, but at the moment, this is covering them all and it's identifying 5 different Rich's funded facilities. The Bradford facility we already mentioned, but the remote sensing Isaac Centre at Nottingham Trent, and the Shard 3D imaging lab at University of Exeter, and there will be a couple of others as well, but they're off the screen. And then if you click on a particular link, that takes you to much more information about the particular facility. So this is an example from the University of Highlands and Islands for their archaeology and environmental science facility, with the list of techniques that they support, and then down below the list of asset types. But the key thing I wanted to show you here is the button to apply for Rich's access. So as each call is launched, there's the opportunity to fill in a form by clicking that button and say, that's what I want to access. Of course, many of the facilities also support commercial access. So if you're not eligible for the Rich's access, or if it's a project that you've got funding for and maybe more appropriate to go the commercial route, there's simply a link to contact the lab for more details, and most of these facilities are supporting commercial access as well. And then lastly, just to again highlight that there will be virtual research environments available from June with the first one, and then as you saw, we'll be funding through the small grants programme the winning applications who wanted to develop their own virtual research environments. So the idea is, and we've already got this working, that you'll be able to take data seamlessly from the catalogue to identify specific data sets that may be too large to download, but you'll be able to take them straight into the virtual research environment. And we're making a standard toolkit available in there in the first instance. So QGIS, Blender, R statistical packages, the sorts of things, but we're open to adding more software if what's already in there doesn't suit your needs. But then we'll be working with the HRC software engineers to develop more tailored environments. Okay, so last slide. from me. Final question. So what is the difference between the ADS and the HSDS? And the short answer is that there isn't really one. The HSDS investment is allowing us to do a lot more and to expand into different domains and different areas than we were able to as ADS. But the underpinning architecture is shared. So the data ingest system, the repository, the metadata knowledge base are all the same. We'll be developing new data standards for the new domain, but they will apply to both, and we're already adopting a lot of the ADS guides and data standards. And if you're depositing data with us, you can really go to either website, either route, and use the ingest system to upload your, or you will be able to use the ingest system to upload your data set. You can say, well, I think this is more appropriate for the Heritage Science Catalogue if you wish, but our archivists have developed rules of thumb, say which catalogue or catalogues your data should be listed in. In many cases, it will be listed in both shop windows. And indeed with Oasis, we're also tagging Oasis reports, as you saw with an example there, where it's also relevant that they appear in the HSDS catalogue. And above all, it's the same charging policy. So there's no difference in going via ADS or HSDS. Free deposit, I have to emphasize, is only for the HSDS core partners for their agreed data sets, the Richards catalogue projects, and the Access Fund beneficiaries. If you've got commercial access to a Richards facility, then that comes under the same charging policy that was applied with ADS, and the same costing tool applies. But it's also the same people involved. So many of the names and faces that you'll be familiar with, you'll be dealing with HSDS as well. And so, yeah, if I put the two catalogues side by side, you'll see that the interface, the architecture's very similar. The one on the left has, for example, the Canaletto conservation data as well as High-Speed 2. The one on the right has the much larger at the moment set of collections and resources that you'll be familiar with from ADS, including the standard archaeological digital archives. So thank you very much for allowing me to give you that whirlwind tour of what's going on.